What's up, everybody? My name's Parasite. Welcome back to Rebuilding Nebraska. Today we have our mid-season recruiting update. We're in week 8 of year 2, and we've got some of our first commits of this season's recruiting class, including a couple of our top prospects. In total, we have 3 commits so far, including our top target, Joseph Monroe, the outside linebacker. He was the #1 guy we're going after, and he has committed to Nebraska. The other 2 commits are tackle Jack Haley and another outside linebacker, Matt Lamb, who actually played middle linebacker for us. Joseph Monroe, the #1 guy, is going after just because of his coverage ability. He's got 83 zone and 72 man. We need a left outside linebacker for next season, and I think that's going to be Joseph Monroe. He's probably going to start as a true freshman. He's got some decent speed as well. I think he could cover tight ends just fine. Decent enough in run defense. I think he could do a good job, but his coverage ability is what sets him apart. Joseph Monroe, I think, is going to be a good get for us. Next up is tackle Jack Haley. He is a perfect right tackle. Good acceleration, really good strength for a tackle, really good run blocking. We need some depth at that right tackle position. That would eventually be a starter, and I think Jack Haley is that man. Really glad to get him. And finally, Matt Lamb. He is probably going to be a middle linebacker. His coverage is okay. I think good enough. He's not much of a pass rusher, so I don't really want to play him on the right outside linebacker position. They're more of a pass rusher than any of our other linebackers in our system. I think it'd be okay. He's not a perfect middle linebacker, but he's got really good tackling, good hit power, really good pursuit and play rec. Block shed is the only number I don't really love as a middle linebacker, but he's fast enough for that 82 speed, but that 88 acceleration makes up for it. I don't know if he's got the coverage to play left. I don't know if he's got the pass rush to play right. So I think it's probably a middle linebacker, but he's just too good of a player for us to not go after. And we need middle linebackers. So I'm really happy to get Matt Lamb. When it comes to the rest of our targets that are yet to commit, our new #1 target is John Jude, who would be a right outside linebacker for us. We currently are ahead of LSU and USC, but we did just have our visit. And so I'm not super confident that we're going to get John Jude. We were staying kind of in with them, but they were slowly gaining out on us. And it looks like he's more likely to go to LSU or USC. But I'm still hopeful we can get John Jude because he's a perfect right outside linebacker. Very good pass rusher, pretty solid in run defense with that really good block shed. Tackling's a little bit low, which is kind of keep him from playing a middle linebacker position, I think, and his lack of coverage. But he's got good speed and amazing acceleration, which I think will be super useful at right outside linebacker. He might even start as a true freshman if we do get him. He's currently our top target, but he might be one of the more unlikely players we're trying to get. Next up is Kyle Wade, who's a guard. Our guard position when we first got here was one of the worst position groups on our team, and we're still working to rework that position. And so I really want Kyle Wade, but again, not totally sure if we're going to be able to get him. Currently Navy lead, but they did just have their visit. And so I think, it's going to be probably between us and USC, and we're right there with each other. It's going to be pretty close. He's got a lot of scholarship offers. He's got a lot of visits scheduled. This is going to probably be a tight race that goes to the very end of the season, but he's another guy that I really want on this team. Up next is a safety, Quentin Ingram. I think it'd be a backup free safety for us. Again, player I'm not sure we're going to be able to get. We're right there, up there with Missouri, like we have been since the start of the season, but we're not gaining on them at all. In fact, they're actually starting to get a little bit of a lead very slowly every single week. And so unless something changes and they pull out of the race for him, it's going to be a fight to the very end with Missouri to get this guy. Another outside linebacker going after, Cole Jones. Again, another guy I'm not sure we'll be able to get. Looks like USC, once again, will be leading the race for him and be most likely to get him. Again, they're slowly getting a lead. They've still got some visits scheduled, as do we. We are really the only 2 teams in for him, though, so it's us or USC. And right now, it's looking like USC. Now, finally, some players that it looks like we should be getting. They should be added to our class probably sooner rather than later. Starting off with Matt Campbell. He is a sophomore JUCO tight end. Really good receiver. And we've got a pretty big lead on Missouri. Looks like we probably will be getting this guy. Speed's not amazing, but good receiving ability as a backup tight end. I think it'd be really good for us. We have had our visit. Missouri's still yet to do that, but I don't know if that's going to be enough to close the gap. Might not get him as soon as I'd like, but I think we will be getting Matt Campbell. Up next, another player that I think we're going to be getting, BJ Cook. Might think I'd be a little bit more confident with a 2,000-point lead over Michigan, but they are slowly starting to gain on us, and they've offered him a scholarship. And we've had our visit. They haven't. So I'm still a little bit worried that he might want to go to Michigan. We did just have our visit, which is why we've got a big lead over them right now. But I do foresee that closing, and it might be a race that goes a little bit longer than I'd like. But he's a very, very good cornerback. Probably more of a slot guy with his low press, but I really like BJ Cook. He'd really improved this cornerback position, just like the guard position. It was a position that was very weak when we got here, and I'm still working to improve it. Next up, probably the most likely player left on our board that we're going to get, John Robinson, the punter. To be honest, I don't know why he hasn't committed already. We've got a 3,800 point lead over Notre Dame. It's looking pretty nailed on that we're going to be getting John Robinson to be our future punter. Next up, a player that for a long time looked unlikely, but we stayed in the race because no one else had offered him a scholarship, and we have recently taken the lead on Jared Gross, the center prospect. We've overtaken Georgia. We did have our visit, which they haven't had yet, which is kind of why we took that big lead. It went pretty well, apparently. But we are the only team to have offered him a scholarship, so I'm still pretty confident we can get him unless that changes with Georgia or Ohio State. If they offered him scholarships, then I think it becomes pretty unlikely. But we've got some backup prospects as well, in case we don't get him. He might not ever be a starter until maybe his junior or senior year, but I'm looking to add some good depth to this team as well. And he can play a guard position if we need him to. Got some good versatility. Would like to get Jared Gross. We'll see how that one goes. Next up, Tim Hawley, kind of a backup safety option if we don't get Quentin Ingram, which is looking a little unlikely, but Tim Hawley basically nailed on that we would get him if we do want him. Good player. I don't know. I don't know if he's a strong safety or a free safety. I think he would play free as a backup. He's got good enough coverage ability, really good tackler. Play rec is pretty low, which I don't love, but he's got some good speed. I think the speed is good enough to play free safety. Just a decent safety option. That would be some good depth for us. Next up, a JUCO junior, Joe Henderson at guard. Again, it looks like a player that we might be getting. No one else is really going that heavily into him. Again, not a great long-term option, but in the short term, we need to improve our guard position as well, and I think he'd do a very good job of doing that. He'd come in and immediately be one of our better guards on the team. So definitely get some play time, and I do still want to bring him in. And then a couple more outside linebackers. It's a position we really need to address, linebacker in general, middle, outside, all of them. We have some here, but we have got some seniors, and the rest of them aren't that good. We have 3 seniors that are starting this year. All 3 starting linebackers are seniors. So we really need to bring in some linebackers and improve this team and bring in some youth. So I'm still looking to bring in some guys like Adam Taylor, like Kyle King. Taylor's kind of the backup for John Jude if we don't get him. He can play a similar kind of style. He's more of a pass rusher. Not that great in coverage, but not too bad either. Decent stopping the run. Not a lot of speed. Acceleration a lot lower than John Jude. But I think he could play middle, and I think he could play right outside linebacker. Got a little bit of versatility for us. Could be a good get for us, and we've currently got the lead. Same for Kyle King. Currently got the lead on him. He is more of a he's not a right outside linebacker. He's probably a middle with his lack of speed. I don't know if he's got the speed to cover tight ends, at least the faster ones. So he probably could play a little bit on the left, but probably would be better through the middle. And we need some depth there as well. We need a guy to redshirt, and that could be Kyle King. And then the final linebacker we kind of have a little bit interested in, that's Marvin White. Again, a guy with some decent versatility. He could probably play all 3 positions, really. He's got decent coverage ability, decent pass rush ability, good block shed. His tackle's a little low, but I still think he could play in the middle. I think it'd be a good get just because he's so versatile, and that helps when you don't have a lot of great linebackers on our team. Next up, a wide receiver, Eric Randolph. Again, we don't have a huge need at wide receiver. We've got some good young players at that position, but we could always use better players, and Eric Randolph is really too good to not go after. But unfortunately, Alabama recently started going for him. They've offered him a scholarship, and they're starting to close our lead, but we are just starting to go all in on him. I'm still kind of uncertain. Might be pretty unlikely with Alabama in there, but he's got some good speed, catching a little low, but everything else for a receiver is very good. That I think could be a good option for us with some decent size as well at 6'3". Another linebacker, one we're probably the least likely to go after, Brad Adams. Again, only 72 overall, one of the lowest rated linebackers going after. I don't know what position would be his best. Like, he could play right with his pass rushing. Middle, maybe as well. He doesn't have anywhere near the speed to play on the left, even though he does have good zone coverage. I don't know. I don't like his lack of speed and acceleration, but other than that, the rest of his numbers are pretty good. Another wide receiver we're looking at, probably unlikely at this point because Tennessee have really gotten into the race for him. Jerome Miles, not good enough that I really want to put a whole lot of points into him. He's not a massive upgrade over what we have, but he is an upgrade, so I would still be interested. Then a pass rusher, Quentin Edwards. We had 2 walk-on pass rushers this year, so I could always bring in better players to be backups at the very least. And Quentin Edwards would be that. We've got a decent lead over Auburn without having to put a lot of points into him. It's not really worth it to put a bunch of points into him at this point when we've got some bigger other targets we need to go after. But if we do get those guys, he could be one of the guys I go more hard on towards the end of this recruiting streak. Up next, a couple of backup options in the interior of offensive line. Jason Matthews, decent guard. I don't know if I'd bring him in if I get some of the other guys I'm going after, but if I don't get them, which, you know, the first guy we're going after, the what's his name, Kyle Wade, looks like it might be unlikely. So if we don't get him, even if we do get Joe Henderson, which is looking likely, I still might go to try to get in Jason Matthews. Just some good depth. Maybe he could start at one point. And then Eric Harris, a backup center option that is kind of looking unlikely. Fresno State have pretty big lead on us currently, but we just started going all in on him. But we have got that big lead back with Jared Gross. We've kind of closed that race, so it's looking a little bit likely we could get him. So losing out on Eric Harris wouldn't be awful. If we don't get either, then it's a little bit of a concern because we don't really have a backup center for next season. Actually, we for the season after. We want somebody to redshirt this season and then, or next season, and then the season after that, they'd be a backup. I'm just looking forward to the future, and so I'm wanting to bring in a center. I always want to redshirt a player if I can. But, I mean, the whole point is to get as good of players as you can. So if you can redshirt them, you want to do that. So I'm looking forward to the future with some of these signings down here. Then a player that we had on our board for a little bit, but we're never really that interested in because we had some other targets. Well, we've gotten a few of those players, so we're going to look to see if we can get Sean Washington now. He's an 80 overall quarterback who is not a runner, 58 speed, but a very good passer with that 93 throw power, 87 acceleration, or throw accuracy. So in certain scenarios, if we need to get some big plays throwing the ball, he could be a guy to come in and do that late in the game for, you know, trailing, and, you know, the starting quarterback isn't getting it done because we're going after more of all-around quarterbacks for our starter. But I do think we could have some value in having Sean Washington on this team. No one else seems that interested in him. No one's offered him a scholarship, so we might be able to get him without putting a whole lot of investment into him. And the same can be said for Clarence Little, another player that not a lot of teams have interest in. And without putting a lot of points into him, we've got a decent lead over Ohio. He would improve our backup running back position, so I'm okay with that. It's a player I don't have to have a lot of investment in that could be a better backup than what we currently have. I am all for that. And then the rest of our players are just more backups from other positions like wide receiver, outside linebacker. Barkley's 78 overall, but he's just such a weird prospect. I don't know where he would play. I think his best is quarterback, but he's not as good of a quarterback as Sean Washington. He's a better runner, but we don't really need a player like that. We've already got some good runners on our team at quarterback, and he's not as good as those guys running the ball. But he is maybe a slightly better passer. But Sean Washington, a much better passer. So I could see more instances in where he would come in and make a difference than possibly Robert Barkley. Other than quarterback, though, he could kind of play linebacker, but he has 43 block shed, so I don't love it. Just don't know where this guy would play for us, but he's such a high overall, and we've got a big lead without having to put points into him. I'm going to keep him on the board. If we can get him and find a spot for him, I wouldn't be all the way against it. And the rest are just some backup options out like linebacker, defensive end, safety, some more outside linebackers, tight end, fullback, and then a wide receiver. So we've got the making of what looks like a pretty good recruiting class. We've got some pretty good prospects in already. Joseph Monroe, I'm so glad we got him. There's not any other player like him in this recruiting class with that kind of coverage ability at linebacker. And in a passing league, in a passing game, that is so valuable. That's it for this update. We'll probably have one more recruiting update this season, towards the end of the season, around this Indiana, Michigan State, week 12 or week 13, most likely. We should have some more recruits by then. Hopefully our board a little bit more fleshed out, and we'll have a good idea of what our recruiting class is going to look like. The next episode, we'll be taking on Kentucky, a rematch of last season's Guaranteed Rate Bowl. They'll be looking for some revenge. If you made it this far, why don't you like the video, subscribe, and click the bell. The links to all my socials and my Twitch are in the description. I really appreciate all your support. Thank you all for joining me, and I'll see you next time.